One night, outside the golden gates of the palace, a boy stood soaked in rain. His clothes were torn, his feet were bare, and in his eyes there was only one thing: hope. Until yesterday, no one knew his name. But by the next morning, the whole kingdom was saying it. Guards were bowing before him. People were telling his story from street to street. And the king himself stepped down from his throne to stand before that boy. So what happened in that one night? How did a homeless, powerless, overlooked boy become so important overnight? This is the story of Princess Elara and that boy, a boy who had nothing, but whose heart held everything. The ending of this story will surprise you, so make sure to watch till the end. And if you love emotional, magical stories like this, subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss a new video. Far away, there was a land called Valmoria, a kingdom where golden towers touched the sky, and the markets were always full of colors and fragrances. Valmoria's beauty was famous far and wide. But behind every shining thing, there is always some darkness too, and Valmoria was no exception. Right at the center of this kingdom stood a magnificent palace, where King Aldrich and his just rule reigned. His only child was Princess Elara. Elara was a girl unlike anyone else. She was only 19 years old, but her thinking ran deeper than that of many grown adults. Her golden hair and blue eyes made her look like a fairy, but her true beauty lay in her heart. Elara never liked palace life. Gold, silver, jewels, and royal feasts never impressed her at all. She would often look out of her window and wonder what the outside world was like, a place where people were free, where there was no obligation to follow rules. She loved meeting poor people, listening to their stories, and helping them, but the palace rules always held her back. A princess should only meet with royalty, her nanny would always say. But Elara's heart believed something else entirely. On the other side, in Valmoria's narrow streets, where only torchlight lit the night, there lived a boy named Kael. Kael had no home, no family, and no money. He had been an orphan since childhood. His mother had left him outside an orphanage when he was very young, and from that day on, Kael had built his own life by himself. By day he did odd jobs in the market, sometimes carrying goods for a shopkeeper, sometimes tending horses, and at night he slept in a small, broken-down room that a kind old woman let him stay in. People called him the boy who has nothing. But those who knew him closely knew that Kael had something very few people have: a true, hard-working, honest heart. He might go hungry, but he never stole anything from anyone. He might be exhausted, but he never held back from helping an injured animal or a child. These two, a princess who had everything and a boy who had nothing, their lives could never have crossed. But fate has its own plans. One evening, as the sun set behind Valmoria's towers, Elara made the biggest decision of her life. Once again, she was going to sneak out of the palace. Her nanny was asleep, the guards were at their posts, but Elara knew a secret path that went through the garden all the way to the market. She took off her royal clothes and put on a plain robe, looking just like an ordinary girl, someone no one would recognize. She wandered through the market, looking at shops, listening to people talk, and feeling free. But then suddenly there was an uproar. Two shopkeepers had grabbed hold of a boy, accusing him of theft. "I didn't steal anything," the boy shouted. "I was just asking for my wages." One shopkeeper shoved the boy in anger, and he fell to the ground. The crowd watched, but no one stepped forward. Everyone just stood there watching the spectacle. But Elara couldn't stay silent. She pushed through the crowd. "Stop." Her voice carried an authority found only in royal blood, though her face wasn't recognized. "This isn't your business, girl," the shopkeeper said. "As long as it's a human matter, it's everyone's matter," Elara replied. "Tell me, what is he accused of?" The shopkeeper stammered, but Elara's eyes were now on the boy still sitting on the ground. His clothes were torn, dust covered his face, but there was neither shame nor fear in his eyes. Only a silence that said a great deal. This was Kael. Elara took out the few coins she had and gave them to the shopkeeper. "Here, settle his account, and let him go." The shopkeeper was stunned but took the money and left. The crowd slowly dispersed. Kael stood up and looked at Elara. You didn't need to do that, he said, his voice holding neither thanks nor anger. Only surprise. I know, Elara said, smiling. But I can't stay quiet when I see something wrong happening. Kael studied her closely. You don't seem to be from around here. Why? Elara asked, a little nervous. Because the way you speak, the light in your eyes, it's not like the people of this market, Kael said, then lowered his head and started to walk away. Wait. Elara called out. At least tell me your name. He stopped, turned back to look at her.
Kael.
I'm Ella, Elara lied, hiding her true identity. In that very first meeting, something remained in both their hearts. A strange connection that neither Elara nor Kael could quite understand. After that night, Elara couldn't help herself. She kept being drawn back to the market, hoping she might run into Kael again. And often she did. The two would meet by an old, broken fountain, where no one could see them. At first their conversations were ordinary, about the weather, market stories, or Kael's day of work. But slowly, their conversations grew deeper. Kael told Elara about his life, how he had spent his childhood on the streets, how he had done every possible job to keep himself alive, and how, despite all these hardships, he had never given up his honesty. People think that those who have nothing also have nothing to show, Kael said one day, looking up at the sky. But I think when you have absolutely nothing, that's when you find out what's really inside you. This thought settled deep in Elara's heart. She had never heard anyone speak with such depth in her whole life, not her courtiers, not even her betrothed, who had been chosen for her. In return, Elara told Kael about her own life too, but only half the truth. She said she was a girl from a wealthy household with many restrictions, without the freedom to do as she pleased. She kept her royal identity hidden because she knew that if Kael learned the truth, everything would change. Slowly, their meetings became a daily routine. Kael showed Elara the market's hidden, beautiful corners, an old bookshop where poor children listened to stories for free, a small garden where Kael grew flowers himself, and a hill from which all of Valmoria's lights could be seen. For the first time, Elara understood what freedom truly felt like. For the first time, she fed a hungry child with her own hands. For the first time, she gave money for a sick old man's medicine without any royal formality, and for the first time, she felt like just Ella, not Princess Elara. For Kael, too, this friendship was nothing short of a miracle. All his life, people had overlooked him, but Ella, as he knew Elara, listened to him carefully, valued his words, and made him feel that he mattered to someone too. But the kingdom's rules were very strict. Valmoria had a deep class system. Royalty could only associate with their own kind. There was an invisible but strong wall between the rich and the poor. If anyone found out that Princess Elara was meeting a poor, homeless boy every day, the consequences could be terrible, especially for Kael. One day, as the two sat on that old hill, Kael said, Ella, sometimes I feel like maybe our meeting is just some trick of fate. You're from one world, and I'm from another. Elara looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes that she tried to hide. Worlds can be different, Kael, but hearts don't have to be. This moment turned out to be the most beautiful and most dangerous turning point in their relationship. What Elara feared most eventually happened. There was a minister in the palace, Lord Draven, King Aldric's closest advisor, but his intentions were never pure. He craved power and influence, and his biggest plan was to marry his nephew, Prince Corwin, to Elara so he could bring himself even closer to the throne. Draven had been watching Elara's every move for months. When he learned that Elara sneaked out of the palace at night, he sent his men to follow her. One night, Draven's spies saw Princess Elara meeting a poor boy, laughing with him, spending time with him. This news reached Draven immediately, and he saw it as his golden opportunity. The next morning, Draven went to King Aldric. "Great king," he said, wearing a mask of false concern, "I must give you some bad news. Your daughter, Princess Elara, sneaks out of the palace at night and meets a boy from the streets. This could damage the honor of your rule." King Aldric didn't believe it at first, but when he asked Elara, the color draining from her face told him the truth. "Father," He's just a friend, Elara pleaded. He's never asked me for anything. He's honest, he's hardworking. He's a poor, homeless boy. The king's anger erupted. You are a princess, Elara. Your meeting with someone like this could bring shame upon the entire kingdom. That night, the king sent guards to find Kael. He was summoned to the palace, not with honor, but like a criminal. How dare you approach my daughter? The king asked, anger in his voice. Kael stood with his head bowed. Great king, I never tried to deceive the princess. I didn't even know that she... Enough! The king cut him off. You are ordered to leave Valmoria. If you are found here by morning, you will be imprisoned. Elara pleaded a great deal, but King Aldric's decision did not change. That same night, Elara's marriage to Prince Corwin was also announced. Draven's scheme had succeeded completely. Kael was thrown out of the palace, without any belongings, without any hope. Elara watched from her window until his shadow disappeared into the darkness of the night. I will find you, Ella, Kael said to himself one last time, deep in his heart. No matter what happens. Over the following days, Kael's life became even harder. He was pushed out beyond Valmoria, where there was no work and no shelter. He wandered through the forests, hungry, exhausted, but with one thought in his heart, Elara. Every night, as he slept on the cold ground, he would tell himself, I have nothing, but my heart is true. And one day, this truth will be my greatest strength. Fate has its own paths, and sometimes, even for the most broken people, a new turn comes. Wandering through the forest, Kael found an injured old man living alone in a small hut in the middle of the woods. True to his nature, Kael helped the old man, fed him, tended to his wounds, and stayed with him for several days until he recovered. The old man was no ordinary person. He was Valmoria's former royal advisor, who 20 years ago had fallen victim to a false conspiracy and been thrown out of the palace, just as Kael had been. His name was Master Eldon. One night, as Kael was telling his story, of being an orphan, of his poverty, and now of being separated from Elara, Master Eldon's eyes widened in shock. What was your mother's name? Eldon suddenly asked. I don't remember clearly, Kael said. I only know that she left me outside an orphanage, and with me was a locket with a strange mark on it. Kael took out the old locket he always wore around his neck and showed it to him. Master Eldon's face turned pale. This is the mark of the royal family. This is Prince Alaric's mark, the true heir of Valmoria, who went missing 20 years ago in an attack. Kael was stunned. This isn't possible. I'm just an orphan. No, my son, Eldon said, tears in his eyes. You are Valmoria's lost heir. When enemies attacked the palace, your real mother, King Aldric's younger sister, ran away to save you, so that you would be safe. She gave her life, but she kept you alive. This news turned Kael's entire world upside down. He, the one people called the boy who has nothing, was actually part of Valmoria's royal family, King Aldric's nephew, and the rightful heir to the throne. But at this same time, a new danger loomed over Valmoria. Lord Draven, now sunk even deeper into his conspiracy, was working directly to seize the throne. He had secretly prepared an army to take over the palace on the wedding night, when everyone would be occupied. Master Eldon told Kael all of this. You must go back, Kael. Not just for Elara, but to save all of Valmoria. Kael, who had once thought nothing of himself, now felt a new strength within him. This was no longer just his fight for love. It had become a fight to protect an entire kingdom. I had no throne, no wealth, Kael told himself. But I have the truth. And today, that truth will be enough. On the wedding night, the palace was filled with lights and guests. Elara stood in a golden gown, but there was no joy in her eyes. Her heart was elsewhere. Suddenly, the palace's great doors burst open. Kael walked in, not in torn, old clothes, but in simple yet dignified attire, with Master Eldon beside him. The entire gathering fell silent. What is this outrage? Draven shouted, showing his true face. Guards, throw him out. No. Master Eldon's voice rang out, strong and clear. Great king, this boy you cast out of the palace, He is no ordinary street boy. This is Prince Alaric, your sister's son, Valmoria's lost heir. A wave of shock swept through the gathering. King Aldric's face was caught between disbelief and realization. Seeing the locket, which only the royal family possessed, tears came to the king's eyes. This isn't possible, but this mark. At that very moment, Draven panicked. His conspiracy was falling apart. "This is all a lie," he shouted, and signaled to his hidden soldiers, who began storming into the palace. But Kael was ready. He had already alerted Valmoria's loyal guards beforehand. After a brief skirmish, Draven's men were subdued, and Draven himself was arrested, his conspiracy completely exposed. When the chaos ended, King Aldric stepped down from his throne and came to stand before Kael. The eyes of the entire gathering were on them. "Forgive me," the king said, genuine remorse in his voice. "I rejected you only because you had nothing. But today I have learned you had everything that truly matters." Elara, who had been standing there silently in tears, ran to Kael. "I knew it," she wept. "I always knew there was something special inside you." Kael took her hand. "I never had anything, Ella. But as long as you're with me, I have everything." In the weeks that followed, much changed in Valmoria. Lord Draven was sentenced for his crimes of conspiracy, and the kingdom breathed a sigh of relief once more. Prince Alaric, whom everyone still fondly called Kael, accepted his true identity, but he never forgot his old life in his heart. He started several programs in the palace to help Valmoria's poor and homeless children, food, education, and shelter. "I know what hunger feels like," he said in his first speech. "I know what loneliness feels like. And now that I have power, I will never let anyone feel the pain that I once felt." A few months later, a grand wedding took place in Valmoria, but this wedding wasn't the result of any political scheme. It was a celebration of two hearts truly united. Princess Elara and Prince Alaric were married, and the whole kingdom blessed them. People say that for many generations afterward, Valmoria's story was told, of the princess who valued her heart more than her crown, and of the boy who, even when he had nothing, never gave up his honesty and love. True wealth, after all, isn't what's locked away in treasure chests. True wealth is what lives in the heart. And that is the greatest lesson of this story. So that was the story of Princess Elara and the boy who once had nothing, but whose heart held everything. Sometimes life teaches us that true worth doesn't come from money or a crown, but from honesty and love. Now, we want to ask you a small question. If you're watching us from the USA, be sure to comment and tell us which state you're from. We want to see just how far around the world these stories of ours are reaching. If you enjoyed this story, please like it, share it with your friends and family, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do, because another exciting and emotional story is coming soon. See you in the next story.